there's a lot of Thank you, Popo. We felt that at the same time, while there is a lot of accelerated backlash, both online and offline, a lot of funding cuts, we have had conversations around COFEM communities and COFEM members, and there have also been a lot of experiences shared about how feminist communities are resisting this backlash, are staying present, and are paving different ways forward and building different realities. And so we hope that this is a space where we can have honest and maybe some difficult conversations about what is happening in our different spaces in your context. What are some of the resistance strategies that we are seeing? What are the care strategies that we are seeing? And how do we move forward more collectively so that we are not constantly feeling exhausted and burning out? And we hope that this space is also a space where it is not hierarchical. And so please feel free to share your knowledge. This is not an authority knowledge sharing space, but rather a conversation. And so as we move forward, if you have any, we are going to start with a few reflections from some of the COFEM members. Oh, am I cutting off for some people? Oh,
Not for
sorry,
me.
sorry, Judith, I think that might be internet from your end. Yeah, sorry about the limitations of how we can organize online. But as I was mentioning, we are going to start with reflections from three COFE members. By now, only two had joined, but hopefully the third person will be able to join. And after those reflections, we will have some space for conversations about if anything resonates, if there are any questions. And then we will move to more collective circles of reflection in different breakout groups. And we'll come back, talk a bit more, and draw strategies on how to move forward. All right, I have spoken so much, but please feel free to introduce yourself in the chat and put down any reflections. And now I am going to move to our first person to reflect on some of the questions today. And so, Sarah, I will move to you. What are you seeing in your context? What is happening for you in your space? What are some ways of resistance that you're seeing from feminist communities? How are they organizing? Please let us know. Over to you, Sarah, and please briefly introduce yourself as well.
Thank you, Lucky, and thank you to everyone joining us today. My name is Sarah Soto, and I'm a Colombian COFEM member working in international cooperation. And I will just briefly highlight two processes from Colombia that illustrate how feminist movements can advance in restrictive environments, focusing specifically on the strategies that make this possible so we can all reflect on this together. The first one is a feminist legal transformation that took place in 2022 when Colombia's Constitutional Court, through the ruling CO 55, if anyone is interested in looking for it, decriminalized abortion up to 24 weeks. And what is most relevant here is not only the outcome, but the strategy behind it. And I believe we can all learn from these strategies. The first one is that feminist movements took the time to reframe the public debate around abortion. They shifted it away from morality and towards bodily autonomy, rights, public health, and equality. And this narrative shift was essential to broaden the legitimacy of the project and reduce the stigma around it. Second, they built coalitions of cross-expertise. The Causa Justa movement, which was the movement that advocated for this cause, brought together over 90 organizations that combined legal advocacy, grassroots mobilization, and medical knowledge, All of this to enable coordinated action across different areas and to fight on different fronts. Third, they grounded their claims in evidence. They used data strategically to demonstrate the harmful effects of criminalization and to counter any ideological resistance. And fourth, they sustained a long-term approach. This decision was the result of years, I believe even a decade, of coordinated legal action, social mobilization, and institutional engagement. The second case I'll be sharing with you today is the Bogotá's Manzanas del Cuidado, or care blocks, which is a public policy that was designed to recognize and redistribute unpaid care work, which has been historically invisible. And here again, strategy was central. First, the feminist organizations positioned care as a political and economic priority and thus made it visible within public agendas. Second, these movements were able to read and leverage the political environment and the political opportunities that they had at the moment. And they were able to translate the demands into policy when institutional conditions aligned and when they found allies within the government and within the judicial system that could champion them. And third, the policy itself was strategic as it prioritized the most underserved areas first and then expanded incrementally, enabling gradual but sustained implementation. And across both cases, I believe that a persistent pattern emerges and a lesson that we can all discuss about, and is that feminist gains are not incidental or not accidents, but are the result of different adaptive strategies. And this feels particularly relevant to Colombia today, since these gains I am mentioning are facing new challenges. We just had a presidential election where the far right won. But as I was reflecting with some feminist colleagues, at times like this, when everything feels uncertain or lost, it is a relief, and there's something grounding in recognizing that our struggles are not only confined to electoral cycles or to 4-year terms, but they are sustained everyday efforts that need to be autonomous from any administration. And I think we can delve on that within this conversation. I think I'll leave it there, Lucky. Thank you again, and the floor is yours again.
Thank you so much, Sarah, for your powerful reflections. And it was also really powerful for me to be reaffirmed that our work does not end at 4-year terms. As someone who's also living in a very dictatorial context, and so it's great to know that sustained work also does really work, and it can go beyond the 4 years, and we can keep our gains. And so over to you, Derhema, as well. Would like to hear more. What are some of the pressures from your context? How are some of the feminist communities responding or adapting? And what feels important to protect or strengthen right now?
Yes, sure. Good morning for everybody. It's so nice to be here. My name is Joe Mayev. I'm from Mexico, and I am talking about how it's happening in Latin America and what is happening specific in Mexico and Central America, which is the context that I work. My work is focusing gender equality, gender-based violence prevention and response. And one of the focus that I work with the institutions and the civil organizations that I work, because it's important in the context, is how we can work of safeguarding community-based approaches and building partnerships that connect evidence, policy, advocacy, and practice, because we learn that is going to be the force that we can work together like a feminist movement in the region. Other things is that we are really agree about that we are experiencing increasing restriction of the civic space, growing political backlash against gender equality, and significant reductions in funding for civil society, for society organizations. This challenge affects directly the sustainability of the feminist movements around the region. And one is the thing that are concerned, because it's not only the funding, it's that don't recognize the activities and the things that we are researching or doing in advocacy. At the same time, feminist movements across the region have demonstrated a remarkable resilience. Rather, that trading organizations are adapting through stronger regional networks, because we know that the networks is going to be the strong strategy to work together, cross-border collaboration, and innovative advocacy strategies. Difference, because in most of the times the governments don't collaborate, don't hear the petitions, or don't work together with us. And we have to change these advocacy strategies that are more or less dependent of the traditional institution spaces. We learn to create another spaces in the street with other, in schools with the girls, and both with youth women, because we know that this is going to be the strategy that is going to be the movement that we those need. One of the greatest challenges is not only the reduction in funding, but also the lack of flexible long-term support that enables the organization fund activities every day. Latin America has shown that collective knowledge is one of the greatest strengths. Preserving this knowledge ensures that the movements remains resilient and increasingly in restrictive political and financial context. The knowledge that we have, like feminist movement, is the stronger. We believe that, and now I am working in different projects that different collectives and NGOs are working together for the same funding, for the same activity. And what's the strength that we learned to work in the six years across the COVID situation, because we learned that work together across the region, across the activities, or across some specific topic is going to be the strength. Another important lesson from the region is the growing emphasis on collective care. Supporting activists prevent burnout and strain organizational well-being are no longer secondary concerns. To be careful with the people we care, that's important. They are essential strategies for sustainable movements over time. From the Latin American perspective, protecting feminist knowledge is not simply about preserving information. It's about ensuring that the experience, the methodologies, leadership, and collective memory built by feminist movements remain accessible to future generations. One of the topics that I work is with the girls and the youth women. And that's great because they are the force that are moving to learn how they can improve their situation and the context that they live in violence. Sustainable funding is essential, but it's quite important in investing in the people, relationships, and knowledge that enable our movements to continue deepening organization. And that is the point that I believe in COFEM, that how important it is to strengthen these efforts for fostering cross-regional learning, promoting flexible and trust-based funding, that I know that we are working on that, and amplify the collective knowledge and that really exists across feminist movements worldwide. And that's the big picture in Latin America, specific in Mexico and Central America. Thank you for the opportunity to talk about that. We can go deeply in the next conversations. And the floor is you, Loki. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that really insightful reflection, dear Hema. And I really resonate with all that, and I like that there is an interconnectedness with both of the reflections. I was thinking about how, in my context as well with Uganda, we have started to lean deeply with our communities, since governments oftentimes do not find it to be a priority to collaborate with women's rights organizations or feminists doing the work. And so we have found that that kind of community work and collaborations has gone far along, more than just waiting on governments to get in place and get in line with us. I also agree with you that protecting that feminist knowledge is a very powerful tool against erasure. And I would like to open this conversation up at this point and ask if anyone else has any reflections on how do you see the protection of feminist knowledge, and the movement spaces in your context, or if what does your context look like, or what do you think that we should be focusing on right now, what feels urgent? And I'm going to give us just a few minutes for this reflection before we move forward. So if you have any thoughts, any questions, please raise your hand and I will add, and you will unmute to speak. Or if you would like to share any questions on the chat, please go ahead. I know that there was already a reflection from someone. Just one moment. Oh yeah, Radhika mentioned that she was really resonating with Sarah, with the thoughts, especially being from a far-right context currently. And it feels like a lot of us really are in that context right now. It would also probably be interesting to hear if we have some people who are not in a far-right context right now. Oh yeah, there's a hand. Ethel, please go ahead.
Hi. Thank you for this platform. My name is MFA. I work with Savannah Signatures. It's an organization in Ghana. And I chanced on this opportunity very last minute. So I registered for it just around midday and I'm joining. I'm particularly very much interested in this topic. I mean, coming from a community, a Ghanaian community where traditions, customs are like a major part of us. They basically guide how we engage from the minutest part of society, that is family, to the highest level you can get to in life. Political, you know, wherever it is that you find yourself, that it's crucial for this preservation that I think the platform is talking about today to occur, so that we understand the trajectory we have, come, where we have come from, especially as women in this space, especially as Ghanaian women, where we were at, where we have come from. For me, particularly, it's most crucial today because of the young crop of people we have, especially the youth. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Today's tools are amazing, especially when we're talking about digital tools. There are so many people currently on the internet propagating so much content, disseminating so many content online, and it is crucial for us. I mean, I'm going to be using my context, my Ghanaian context, for especially Ghanaian young women to understand where we have come from, how far we have come, the achievements we have chalked so far, and what more is there to do. Usually, when you get into spaces for discussion, the rhetoric is that, yeah, you've been doing this for so long. I mean, there's really no change, basically. That's what people say. Because, yes, today in Ghana, you still see or hear of a lot of instances of all of these gender-based violence issues. You hear of, how matriarchs also perpetuate all of these issues that we're talking about. And so usually you have people on the far left using these against us, telling us that, so it's you, these same women who are still propagating, you are at the forefront of some of these issues that occur on a daily basis. So when we are not able to preserve the memory or the knowledge of feminist movements and what individuals as well as institutions and groups have done over the years to get us to where we are currently, the milestones we have chalked, all the achievements we've made so far till now, I think then our youth get lost because then they do not necessarily understand the struggle forebearers have, gone through till now. So for me, it's crucial. I think it guides what content people talk about. When they understand the issues, they are able to articulate it, because social media now has become one platform where people are learning a lot, whether consciously or unconsciously. So that because everybody has a mobile phone, they're making content, they're talking about things they do not know. But memory is crucial at this point so that we all understand where we've come from, who has contributed what to this movement, so that at least it continues. Because, I mean, for us, where I come from, we do not see an end to this, just that we do see some gradual progress as we move along. But thank you so much for this platform.
Yeah, thank you so much, Ethel. And that's a very insightful reflection. And I will say that I absolutely agree with you. Erasure is a political tool of oppression. And this constant push and shove that nothing has been done, feminists have been rallying for years and there's not been nothing done, is absolutely a tool to push us into exhaustion and apathy, and despair, truly. And I absolutely agree that we have to find tools of documenting some of the work that has been done and also resisting that erasure, which is interesting because we were having a conversation recently about, for example, the easier forms of information, how information is being engaged with on social media, like on Instagram or on TikTok, which are some of the biggest platforms. And there's a lot of misogynistic content that's really packaged and retold. So, for example, we're discussing about the trad wives. I don't know how many of you know about this content, and how it's being pushed as the new feminine energy and yeah, and all that. And it's quite interesting that you will go through so much content and see a lot more of that and less more of politically aligned content, because also these platforms are restricting this kind of content. But yeah, which also brings us to a great idea that Camila shared on the chat. I don't know if Camila would be happy to share more about this, but they mentioned that at South Feminist Futures, they are a digital archivist and have a knowledge hub that is multi-thematic and multi-language curated catalog of resources in diverse formats, authored by feminists from the Global South. It serves to support Southern feminist activism by building a knowledge base by and for South feminists and contribute to their legacy. So I guess that is one of the ways we can archive our knowledge. And there's also a LinkedIn if you'd like to connect. And I think that's a very tangible way that this can move forward. But Daniela, you had your hand up, so please go.
Thank you, Loki, and thank you, everyone.
Oh,
Yeah. Okay, yeah, I'll continue. Yeah, it's been really interesting and powerful what Sarah, Joemma, and oh, I lost the previous contributor's name from Ghana have shared. My context also comes as a Mexican, but based in London, and the experience of what I can see working, I guess, from the global north, of how we perceive how feminist movements in the global south are perceived, and it's a little bit tricky. At times, movements in the global south are seen as homogeneous movements, and the funding is seen also in a homogeneous way. When we know from the presentation of Joemma and Sarah that in our Latin American context specifically, this is far the case. And at times within our movements, we see a lot of prejudice and discrimination against indigenous populations. So that is something to consider also within our movements. How are we replicating these power dynamics? Because, for example, of how funding that might be seen, just saying, oh, women, but there are many forms of women. So in Mexico, then how indigenous populations preserve knowledge might be very different to how what I understand as knowledge. If it's not written, then is it our right as researchers and practitioners to write it in a way for a funding application that is from the global north, or how do we navigate as feminists those dynamics when many indigenous women would say they don't consider themselves feminists because for years and years they have been left aside in a different way. So sorry, so what was the previous participant name? Because I don't want to, I want to give credit from Ghana.
Ethel Emefa.
Emefa, yeah. So what
Yeah.
Emefa was saying, yeah, about power within our movement. So yeah, how we navigate that intersectionality, and also recognizing that that exists within the movement, that they are far from perfect. So then, not assuming that we have all the answers, but also how do we build accountability mechanisms to not do those things, to not replicate the same power dynamics with indigenous populations, with LGBTQI populations, etc., etc. And my whole point then of being at the moment based from the global south is, yeah, that a lot of the conversations are focused on funding, which is definitely important, but as colleagues were saying, it's about organizing. And sometimes when we speak over here about advocacy channels, advocacy of how to reach parliamentarians and etc. That's not, we are not getting there. So what Sarah was saying, that it's not the 4-year cycle, the 6-year cycle, but long-term thing. In the UK, at least, we're still sometimes very quite focused on the 4-year election, on the prime minister, but how is that helping movements in the global south? Probably not a lot, or they are not checking, oh yeah, Keir Starmer got resigned anyway. So yeah, that was yeah, my contribution, and yeah, just to mention that bit, that we should be, yeah, mindful also of that accountability within our movement, because it is so diverse even within our context. Thank you, everyone.
Yeah, thank you so much, Daniela. I was just reflecting on, yeah, a few pointers from what you mentioned. Absolutely being aware of the intersecting levels of oppression as we organize, but also understanding that the process of knowledge development and what is considered knowledge itself is very, very political. I know that, for example, in a lot of archives, there has to be a certain way of citing, there has to be a certain way that the document reads, and this ends up leaving out a lot of important different ways of knowledge. And yet we see that a lot of anti-rights actors are using all different forms of knowledge development they can find, including a lot of misinformation. And so I think that it is definitely important for us to see how do we move beyond the usual, this is the small box in which knowledge fits, and the rest is, drafts and unfinished data. Thank you so much, which would lead me to Camila. I know you had unmuted yourself, and then I'll come back to you, Hilda, and we'll close this session. And maybe as you speak about the Knowledge Hub, you can also let us know how do people contribute to this hub? What are the considerations? How does it run? Yeah, over to you, Camila.
Hello. Well, good morning, afternoon, uh, good day, and good week. Our Knowledge Hub, you can contribute by two forms. You can send us an email, and I can share the email now. And we also have a contribution form. Usually, you can do it, but we are also growing our resources by searching, collecting them. We have an audiovisual collection and other options. Like we are trying to grow this not only as a catalog, but also as an archive, right? And of course, we always talking about the knowledge hub. We are also facing the problems we are all facing. How to keep it, how to guarantee funding, and also how can we engage people with the hub in a way that is not something that is only there, but also something useful, a good tool for feminists in general. So in the coming months, we are going to hold also workshops and other events. So I invite you to register in Feminist Futures, and we can invite you, and you can get in touch with us. I will share in the chat the contribution form and the email if you want to get in touch with us. Thank you for the day and for your talk previously.
Thank you so much, Camila. It's exciting to hear about this work that is being done, which I think affirms Jiwa's point. I hope I'm saying your name right, about how a lot of people, really, even after years of work, think of feminist movements as very extreme. And radical, which I think sometimes is not necessarily a bad thing, but sometimes also keeps us from delivering our message to different audiences. And that knowledge, especially feminist knowledge, should be free and accessible. And I think what I'm hearing more is how do we move towards that? Which I think we are going to get into in our different circles. But before we get to that, Hilda, I know your hand was up. Would you still like to say something before we move on? All right. So I think we'll close this part at this point, and then we are going to move forward to more tangible reflections in our different groups, and I will hand over to Pupo to lead us through that.
Thanks a lot, Lucky. Hi, everyone. I'm Popul, and I'm the coordinator of COFEM, and I also support the Feminist Research Working Group. So it's a pleasure to see all of you over here in this space. Yeah, just moving on. In the next 20 minutes, we are going into breakout room discussions to dive a bit deeper into what we are hearing across contexts, and particularly around backlash and how feminist movements are organizing under the current political pressures and funding limitations. So we'll all be in small groups with a facilitator guiding the discussion. We have Radhika, Sarah, Madeline, and Daniela supporting the 4 breakout rooms. So please feel free to speak from your own context and experience. We have 3 questions. I can also share it in the chat, which are the guiding questions for today's discussion. And in your groups, you will explore number 1, any challenges or pressures that you're seeing in your context right now. Second is, how are you responding or adapting to it? Any strategies that you'd like to highlight or that are surfacing in your work? And the third is, what do you think is important to strengthen the feminist work right now? So feel free to engage with care. You don't need to have any answers as such. So it's also okay if you sit with the uncertainty or the complexity, because yeah, some of these are heavy topics. We are also personally affected by it. So yeah, let's have the conversation with care. And then after 20 minutes, we'll come back into the plenary in case somebody wants to share any reflections. So Lucky, if you can just open the breakout rooms. Thank you, and see you all very soon.
Feel free to click and join any room you would like to be in. Since these are not automatic, you can go to, yes, dear Emma, you can go to any room.
People think that feminist movements are very westernized, but I realized that we have lots of feminists who came also who originated from my context, and they worked a lot in the past on many important issues. So I think it's something that it's important to always share because we all have feminists in the past from our context. So yeah, I'm happy to be here.
Thank you. Thank you.
I was in
You-
Antwerp last week because of a conference. Would have been 1 week before we would have met.
Yeah, I was at the conference too. Is it the Ayadi conference?
Yes.
Hi, Popo. Do you think all the facilitators are in the groups?
Yeah, I just see Sarah and Daniela in the same one, and I was thinking of shifting one to breakout room 2.
I think Sarah is supposed to be in 2.
Should I just move her then?
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
Do we have Madeleine around? I think I've seen Radhika, but I haven't seen
Yeah, she's in room 3.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Then Pupa, would you like me to take over the reflections after the breakout groups? Yeah.
Yeah, that would be super helpful, Lucky.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Hi, Pupo. I put some links on the document.
Yeah,
So maybe when I'm doing the closing, you can share them on the chat.
sure thing, Lucky. I can share that.
All right, thanks.
And I was also thinking, once everybody comes back, you can also ask them to share any thoughts or reflections from their specific breakout room discussion.
Yeah, happy to do that.
Thanks a lot.
All right. Okay, looks like everyone is back. Welcome back from the conversations. I hope they were insightful and helpful for you. And we thank you for staying. We have a few minutes to the end of our call, so I will request that if you are able to, please share very high level reflections from your breakout groups. I'll give you a generous 2 minutes each group to please let us know what piqued your mind. Yeah, so I don't know if group one is ready.
Yes, I was facilitating group one with Ladi from Nigeria, Hilda from Uganda, Teresa from Nicaragua, but based in Austria, Florence from the UK, but she works in the Netherlands, but working in Iraq, and another colleagues. So a few of the things I think that what lots of important contributions, but a lot, one of the things that stood out was that the perception of feminism among communities. So for example, in Nigeria, that it's seen as feminism as just against men. So a lot of work has been done with allies to see that, well, we are not against men, but it is about women's decision making, women's voice. In Uganda, we also spoke about feminism being seen as an elitist movement, and the same resonated with Teresa's experience in Austria, where and I think also in the UK, where feminists are more academic usually, and what the experience in Nicaragua is the opposite, with working with grassroots indigenous organizations. And then we also spoke about some of the tensions within the movement. So, for example, in Austria, Germany, around Palestine, that the support that we draw has really divided the movement of who speaks against and who just navigates the similar challenges. And similarly, in Florence work in Iraq, she had seen generational differences, where younger feminists are seeing older feminists as very gender binary, and the older ones are seeing the younger as like they are ruining their gains over so many years. So one of the strategies was to engage in storytelling. Yeah, and similarly in the other examples, to create, I think, space for exchange, and to demystify what was thought about feminism, but there was acknowledging of the tensions within our movement. So yeah, I want again to thank Lati, Hilda, Teresa, and Florence, and everyone else in group one for their contributions. Thank you. Over to you, Loki.
Thank you so much, Daniela, for those apt reflections. Group two?
Yes, Lucky. I was in group two, and we had similar conversations. We discussed how feminism is badly seen too, mainly because of misinformation on what the movement actually entails. And a great part of the conversation was around how knowledge from other parts of the world are missing in conversations and in knowledge production, or in traditional forms of knowledge production, and how to create space for the knowledge of the global South, for instance, in these types of conversations, and how to dismantle the epistemic bias that is around feminism. And we also discussed how we find it hard at times to get in touch with other movements and organizations and partake in other conversations without feeling like we're betraying the movement or losing a sense of identity in the process. How to still talk about feminism without making it explicit, or to face any rejection or ideological offense in that regard. What else? And yeah, how to be able to leverage our struggles and our knowledge, so that it resonates with other movements.
Thank you, Sarah. Those were really great reflections as well. Group 3.
So we had representation from Kenya, Nigeria, Hungary, Italy, Zimbabwe, Canada. So it was wonderful to gather with our crew. We spoke about how in some spaces feminist is a slur, and so how to navigate this. In terms of strategies, we discussed resource pooling with other local organizations and people so that we operate in coalitions for both funding requests, but then also issue prioritization, especially in hostile government contexts where local, national sentiment is quite negative. Lydia was very kind to share the currents and just the complicated context of what's happening in Hungary. And then we also, Immaculate, we got cut off, lucky. This is the wrinkle. Immaculate was sharing some teachings from her context, and the buzzer rang and the breakout rooms closed. So hopefully I can see that in the chat we have many people offering to stay connected, and I think this is something that will be very fruitful as we continue forward.
Thank you, Madeline. And I am so sorry that I know that the conversations must have been so great, but we'll definitely have space for more. And finally, group 4.
Yeah, I think we had a similar challenge where I think Judith was telling us about some strategies and then we had to come back. It's always so short. So I think we talked about some similar challenges about how feminists are sort of viewed, especially in a lot of, there were people from Ghana, Kenya, I'm from India, we had someone from Palestine, and across the board, I think it is how feminists are viewed as other, or they're sort of not part of society or against traditions. That is something we discussed. We also discussed how there's a lot of backlash, and even though the progress women have made, the kind of sort of behaviors they have to face, whether it is politically in parliament or in workplaces, even for very basic things. And in terms of strategies, we were talking about how Judith was sharing how if we could make feminism a more cross-cutting issue, because it is a cross-cutting issue, whether it's feminism, gender and education, gender and healthcare, they're always like sort of connected everywhere. That might be a better strategy to get more funding, given currently there's so many funding cuts in the current political environment. And the other thing we talked about was the need for more grassroots awareness, so that a lot of grassroots workers who do not identify as feminists don't know, I mean, they're doing feminist work, but they don't recognize that the work they're doing or they understand what feminism means. And so for there to be that sort of awareness for women so they can see it not as an evil thing, but as something that's for all of our benefit. I think that's it.
Thank you so much, Radhika. And thank you so much to all of you for these really great conversations and reflections. And always there is a connection for all the 4 groups. And I think for me, what I'm hearing is there is a lot of concern for how feminist movements are perceived and understood, which also contributes to the acceleration of backlash. I am also hearing a really great need for kind of expounding more on feminist knowledge, maybe like feminist political education of sorts, so that people understand what feminism is actually about. I'm also hearing a lot about archiving or taking into mind what has already been done, documenting feminist practices and feminist knowledge. I am also hearing a need for protecting feminist communities and kind of relying on each other and collaborating so that we are not leaving each other behind, but also so that we don't completely relieve our power into the hands of governments and kind of sit back and wait till they fall in line. And so all this is quite helpful. And in the last 10 minutes or so, I would like for us to have a consensus on how would we like this to tangibly move forward, because it seems like there is kind of an understanding of what we need to do to protect feminist knowledge and movement spaces. And so what do we think would be helpful at this time? Is there anything that we feel like, okay, maybe we can work towards, I don't know, archiving or working with some of the people who already said they are archiving feminist knowledge? Do we feel that there is need for more advocacy spaces? Yeah, what are some of the ideas we have to tangibly protect our spaces and our knowledge collectively? What are some of the things we think we can do together? And you can use the chat. You can also unmute and speak if you have any ideas. So I see already an idea as well from Radhika about how we could use platforms like COFEM for coming together and disseminating knowledge. Absolutely. And COFEM is already organizing a lot of, we call them learning hurdles that cover different topics. We have already covered something about feminist grant writing, which had a lot of interest. We also covered recently something around feminist communications in an anti-gender world, which was also quite insightful, and there'll be more. So there is definitely some political education going on. I see there is an idea on it is important to learn and find strategies of how we can be able to stay connected and build sisterhood beyond the internet. Absolutely agree. I know that it has become quite difficult now to connect with each other with borders and anti-rights movements, and the really little funding. But one of the things that we do as COFEM is when we meet at different advocacy, like global advocacy platforms, for example, SVRI, Sexual Violence Research Institute Forum, which will be this year in October in Thailand. We try to organize within those spaces, but also other spaces. So, for example, we were trying to find how we can organize within AWID. So, if you are a COFEM member that will be attending any of those big global forums, advocacy spaces, you can let us know as well, and we see how to connect outside of Zoom. Yeah, I see that someone mentioned it's important to highlight the work of those who are unnoticed. Together, I think that it's important by speaking about them to them and with them. Absolutely. There's a lot of invisibilized work, but also understanding where we came from and where we are going is quite important. I think this is what we are seeing, and yes, there is currently a working group on localizing violence against women and girls approaches for COFEM, so if you'd like to join. Thank you so much for some of these ideas. I know that more are coming on the chat, but just to say what I am picking on for now, and also for other COFE members, and maybe we'll reflect more on this and share back, is that we need some of these conversations to continue and build on more and more. But we'll also be maybe getting in touch with I don't remember, Camila, about the maybe popularizing the archives, depending on how much capacity they have, which is something we can add on to. But we also are developing knowledge products this year at COFEM and different working groups. We have the research working group, we have well-being, we have the advocacy, policy influencing, the localization and fundraising, and many others. And all these working groups are working on different initiatives which are contributing to protecting our spaces, resisting erasure. And so some of the things we are doing this year is developing knowledge products, running social media campaigns, doing advocacy. I know that the fundraising group is in the middle of writing an advocacy letter to some of the funders about the retrogression of feminist funding, kind of a collective advocacy letter. And so there is a lot more happening at COFEM. And you can join us as a member. We will definitely be sharing more on social media, but if you would like to, as an individual, contribute to any of these efforts, please join COFEM. Anyone who identifies as a woman or non-binary can join COFEM. And to join COFEM, you just have to go to our website and you will find the Join Us button where you can learn more on how to do that. You can also follow us on LinkedIn, on Instagram, and we will be sharing this recording on our YouTube as well, and we are sharing the link. And yeah, so otherwise, that's it. We will be sharing more communications about any following steps. And if you also would like to get in touch with me or Pupo, you can email us. Pupo is going to put the COFEM email on the chat, and we are always happy to do any collaborations, but also to generally think through the COFEM membership as well, and who would be best placed to do certain things, because the great idea about COFEM is its diversity of membership. That's it from me, and thank you so much, everyone. Thank you for making the time. Thank you for being present, for being here, and for sharing your knowledge with us. For everyone who co-facilitated from the COFEM members, thank you so much. And for everyone else who joined us to be in this space with us, thank you so much. And please join COFEM so that we can continue to build towards free worlds for all of us. Have a great day, evening, and hope to see you soon in our other spaces.
Wow, bye-bye.
Thank you so much,
Lucy.
Lucky. Thank you, everyone.
Lucy,
Thank you, guys.
Thank you,
Bye.
everyone.
Bye.